Before we start, we have a little experiment for you guys. Raise your hands if you wash your hands every day. Now raise your hands if you shower every day. Yeah. Lastly, raise your hands if you respond to greetings. Now, these all make sense. We wash our hands and shower for hygienic purposes, and we greet people because of politeness. However, why do we do all these things the same way, although there's no laws enforcing it? Well, this is because of conformity.
So what is conformity? Conformity is a social influence that causes a person to change their behavior or their personality in order to better fit in with a group. This can be real group pressure or imagined group pressure.
There are many categories that fall under the conformity umbrella. The first one and most common one is compliance. And this occurs when an individual conforms in hopes of getting desirable reactions from groups or people.
The second type is internalization, where a person actually conforms with a group because what that group is doing matches with their internal values and is intrinsically rewarding.
The third type is identification. This occurs when a person conforms in hopes of maintaining or creating self-defining relationships with groups or people.
And lastly, there is ingratiational, which is the most common type of conformity, where a person conforms to impress or gain acceptance from a group. But it's different from social normative influence because a person is doing it in order to gain social rewards instead of out of the fear of rejection.
Conformity has always played a huge role in society. However, the 1950s brought an era of groupthink and uniformity unlike the others. During World War II, societal norms had to be put to a stop as women began working in factories while men served in the war. However, after World War II, societal norms were put back to normal as women were expected to be homemakers and men were expected to be breadwinners. To add on to this, the sudden and rapid migration of the middle class into suburban areas led to the rapid building of model houses, later nicknamed Levittowns, as you see here. Okay, and finally, people found uniformity as a safety net during the Cold War.
Okay, and then a scientific example of conformity can be seen in the Ash experiment, where 4 Confederates were put in a room with a test subject and then given a line test where they had to say which 2 lines were equal in length. At first, the Confederates were saying the correct answer, but then halfway through they were told to start saying the wrong answer in order to see if the test subject would change their answer in order to fit in with the group. Most of the time, the test subjects did change their answer. And then another scientific experiment can be seen on a Candid Camera episode in 1962, where a test subject was in an elevator and Confederates got on the elevator and decided to face the back of the elevator instead of normally facing the door like everyone normally does. They wanted to see if the test subject would turn around to face the back, which most of the time they did.
However, conformity doesn't always have to happen in an experiment. It mostly comes in forms of trends. We went around and asked a couple of our classmates about what trends they've seen in high school. Most of them were clothing trends such as the Supreme brand, the Adidas All Superstars, and the Nike slides. But some of them came in forms of dance trends like the dab or the shoot dance. Others came in forms of sayings such as bet and fam, and the rest came in forms of accessories.
So we're all naturally conformists, but conformity isn't always bad. So the first way that conformity can be helpful is that it can provide protection, meaning that if everyone in a society conforms, the society runs better and allows people... Oh wait, hold on. Can I restart that one? Sure. Okay. So we're all naturally conformists, but conformity isn't always bad. So the first way conformity can be helpful is that it can provide protection. So if everyone in a society conforms, then the whole society can be protected from outside threats.
Another example of good conformity is the fact that it helps cultural evolution. Again, like before, we all wash our hands, even though most people don't know how bacteria causes diseases. Socially, we kind of all have to do our fair share, whether it's paying taxes, voting, or doing community work. And conformity helps spread the workload so society can move as a whole.
Conformity can also help you if you're in an unfamiliar situation. So for example, if you're in a foreign country and you don't really know what to do or where to go, you can look around at the other people who live there and see what to do in order to stay safe.
Lastly, conformity keeps society civilized by creating a set of rules that we all must follow.
Then conformity can also obviously be bad. So the first way that it's bad is that it breeds non-thinkers, which means that everyone has the same thoughts all the time, so no one has any new ideas, so society stops growing as a whole.
Bad conformity can also lead to less diversity. People who feel less diverse would be harmed because they feel like they cannot express themselves as individuals, and they would also be less productive.
And the most common example of bad conformity is what most high schools call peer pressure, where a person can be forced into a dangerous situation or make a bad decision in order to fit in better with the group.
Honestly speaking, one can simply not choose to conform because it is a part of human nature. However, you can try your best to avoid it by knowing the difference between positive conformity and negative conformity. When faced with negative conformity, the first thing you must do is make sure you have clear and concise values.
And then another way you can avoid it is if you have a good reason so you don't conform. Just do it again because you dropped it. You gonna pick it up?
He's not there.
Pick it up and we'll just do it. Oh wait, it changed.
Okay.
What should we do? We didn't finish doing that thing.
Yeah. Wait, I forgot where I was.
Okay, there are also many ways that conformity can be bad. So first, it breeds non-thinkers in society, meaning everyone thinks the same thing and there are no new ideas, stopping society from growing as a whole.
Another way conformity can be bad is it leads to less diversity. And less diversity can hurt people because they feel like they cannot express themselves, and it makes society less productive.
And then lastly, the most common bad example of conformity is what most people call peer pressure, where someone is forced into a dangerous situation or to make a bad decision in order to fit in with the group.
Honestly speaking, one cannot simply avoid conformity because it is a part of human nature. However, you have to know the difference between negative and positive conformity in order to avoid it. The first thing to do in order to avoid negative conformity is to first see if you have clear and concise values.
And then the second thing you can do to avoid it is to make sure you have a motive or a reason for not conforming. You shouldn't not conform just for the sake of doing it. It will make it a lot easier if you know why you aren't conforming.
We chose this topic because we believe that conformity is something that we face every day, especially as teenagers, as we are more vulnerable to peer pressure.
And then we wanted to show that not all conformity is bad. Sometimes it can be helpful.
Lastly, we wanted to show how to avoid it when in the bad situation. Thank you.
Thank you.